All right, in the last lesson, we talked about reading, why it's important, and how we can do it, right? In this lesson, we're going to do something which is related to what we talked about in the last lesson, but we're going to be focusing on it much, much more. We are going to be talking about learning words, how we can learn words, the best way to learn words. And I'm going to explain it a little bit, and I'm also going to go over a couple of examples to show you the best way to learn words. So let's just begin. Okay, so just a couple things at first. One, I mentioned in the last lesson. If you're going to learn words, I strongly suggest, and it's really the best thing you can do, to learn words in an all-English dictionary. Dictionary is what you use to find the meaning of a word, find the definition of a word, okay? All English dictionaries show you the meaning of the word in English as well. They explain the meaning of the word to you. And now, why should we look up the meaning of a word in English rather than our own language? As long as I understand the meaning, isn't that all that matters? Well, think about this for a second. If you learn an English word, and I know the word, okay? Pickle, okay? But the understanding of the word is back in my old language, my language that I speak naturally, not English. Then, every time that word comes up, you first have to think of your language, and then you have to speak the word, or you have to understand the word if someone else says it. You think that's fast? Is that thinking in English? No, not really. So, the first thing is, it can slow you down doing it that way. Okay? The second is, it's hard to really understand that word. Because in one language, there might be a slightly different meaning to that word. Maybe the dictionary in your language didn't quite get it, or didn't get all of the different meanings. That's one of the biggest problems, is that many dictionaries between languages aren't perfect. And they don't show you the feeling of the word, how the word is used. Okay? So, better if you can use an all-English dictionary. Much, much better. Because when you're doing that, you're learning the meaning in English, and you're thinking about the word in English. So that when you hear it, you understand the meaning very quickly. Because the understanding is in the same language that you heard it in. When you need to use it, when you need to speak it, when you need to say it, that comes out in English. You never need to go over to your other language, your native language. You don't need to. Why should you? Right? What's the reason? Is there any benefit from that? No. No, there's no benefit. So, really important, learn words in one language, the language you're trying to learn. Okay? So, some people say, well, the dictionary definition in the Oxford English Dictionary, I can't understand it. It's too hard. I have to look up all the words that it uses to explain the word. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I understand that. But there are alternatives. There are simpler dictionaries that can give you the meaning, explain the meaning more simply. One that I really like is vocabulary.com. And if they don't pay me, vocabulary.com, so they're not giving me money to say this, I actually think it's pretty good, because the explanations that they give and the examples that they give of the different words are pretty clear, pretty simple, and I particularly like the examples. Okay, now, they don't have every word that you will need to know. Okay, so they are a little bit more limited. But for the majority of words that you will use every day, common words, they have them. And the examples are quite good. So I recommend that one. There are others. Dictionary.com is pretty good. There are a couple other dictionaries, a couple of apps you can download on your phone. These are also good. Just find a way to learn words in English with an English dictionary. That's the key. That's the point. Now, connected with this is forms. Some words have only one form, right? But most words, many words, have more than one form, right? Learning, for example, this word, has more than one form. Learning. learn, learned, right? So we have to learn all of the forms. When you learn a word, when you see a new word and you want to understand it, don't only try to understand that one form that you see. In the last lesson, we talked about the word produce, right? Look up all of the meanings of produce, how it's used, the examples. Try to completely understand that word. Okay? So it's better that you do that one time than having to look up each of the forms every time that you see it. It's kind of a waste of time. Better if you, when you learn a word, find all of the forms of the word, study all of the meanings of all of the forms, and then have a good understanding of it so that you can use it in the future and so that you can actually understand the other forms when you hear the other forms. Okay? So that's a pretty key point. Now, one of the things I talked about in the last lesson was context. And remember, context means the situation that something is in, what's around it. That's the context of that. And it's really important, I believe, to learn words in context. Because in life, we don't just speak single words. We have to speak words in sentences to explain ideas, right? We use words. We need to use words, whether it's writing or speaking, right? And so if you learn words in natural situations, like we did in the last lesson, right? In reading, we learn a word in a sentence and we understand it is in this whole sentence. It can be used to talk about red wine, produce red wine. Okay. When you learn things in context, you can see how it's used and when it is natural to use it and maybe when it is not natural to use it. So learning words in context is really, really important. And now I would like to actually practice learning words in context. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so here we have a sentence. Okay, we've come across this sentence in an article online on, I don't know, Wikipedia. This is not actually on Wikipedia, okay? So just for example, we've read it online and we see a word that we don't understand. What to do? There seemed to be a direct correlation between the number of babies born and the health standards in that area. Okay? Now, maybe we understand health, okay? We know what health means, to be healthy, right? It's the, that's sometimes it's a noun, sometimes it's an adjective, okay? Let's say we know standards. Standards are certain levels. Like we have, understand, certain levels. I have certain standards or requirements sometimes. Maybe it means requirements sometimes, okay? Maybe it means this one. I understand that. Area, we know, okay, area, same as place, region. Oops, C. It's the same as region. All right. Babies, I know babies is a small human. Okay. Direct, okay, direct is the opposite of indirect. Direct means without anything between. Okay, without any other things, without anything between. All right, I understand that. But correlation, I don't understand correlation, all right? So, we look up the word correlation. What do we get? Well, we probably get a few different forms, but we will find correlation is a noun. Okay, so we know it's a noun. All right, great. That helps us. But we also find that it's a verb. We find that its verb form is correlate. Okay, its verb form is correlate. Okay, all right, that helps me a little bit. There's a noun form, there's a verb form. Now, we also find when we look it up, has an adjective form. Has an adjective form. Wonderful. Great. Amazing. Correlated. Okay. Good. Well, that's really messy. Sorry about that. Correlated. Correlates. Correlation. Okay. I know I have these three main forms. Great. What does it mean? So I look up the definition. Definition is the meaning. And what I find is basically correlate or correlated or correlation means a connection, a relationship. And one thing that can help me is to look at synonyms. These are words that have basically the same meaning. There's some difference in some cases, but essentially very similar meaning. I see it means kind of a connection, a relationship. Now maybe I've already figured that out from the context. Context, remember, is the situation. There seemed to be a direct correlation between the number of babies born and health standards. Babies born and health standards. There's two things. Direct what between two things? Well, are there many possible meanings for this word correlation? If we really understand the rest of the sentence, not really. There aren't many possibilities for what correlation could mean. So, we might be able to figure out the word just from the context. We might be able to guess that correlation means relationship. So maybe we have a guess. We look it up, we find the three main forms: correlated, correlate, correlation. Alright, so that helps us to understand it a little better. Now, we look up the definition, synonyms, we find it's similar to a connection, a relationship. This helps to confirm what we thought, our guess about the word, okay? So now we're beginning to feel this word, what it means. Have we looked up the word in another dictionary, our language dictionary? No, we have not. Do we need to? No, we did not. Okay, now, if you are a beginner and you don't know any English at all, probably a good idea to have a dictionary that's in your language. But if you understand 80% of what I'm saying in this course, if you're taking this course, you probably do not need to use a dictionary in your own language and English, okay? So we've looked it up, we understand it. Now let's go back to the sentence and see how it works in a sentence. There seemed to be a direct correlation. Can we put in the word relationship into the sentence? There seemed to be a direct relationship between the number of babies born and health standards in the area. Yes, that works perfectly. Awesome. There seemed to be a direct connection between the number of babies born and the health standards. Yeah, pretty well. That works pretty well. So we're beginning to get a feeling for this word, how it's used, and we might even be comfortable enough to try to use it in a couple of situations. Okay, now that we've got a feeling for how it's used, now that we understand this word in context, so let's try that. Let's see if we can make a couple of sentences with it now. All right, so here we've come up with a couple of sentences that we can use to practice the new word we've learned. Correlation, correlated, correlate. Okay? Let's see. I wonder if there is a correlation between happiness and income. We noticed in the sentence that we learned the word from that between followed correlation, right? We had originally a direct correlation between the number of babies born, right? So we'll use this after correlation because that's typically how it's done, at least in our experience, right? We shouldn't do anything out of our experience unless we want to play with the word, which we can, but we should always have a way to check that. I wonder if there is a correlation between happiness and income. We have two things, A and B, and we want to know if there's a relationship between A and B. So why not use the word correlation? And I wonder means I'm thinking about. Okay, so this works. This is a sentence that helps us understand how to use it. And once you've learned a word, make a sentence. Let's try another form. Remember, we learned another form when we looked it up in the dictionary. The other form is correlated. Okay? So, let's see. Global warming. Global warming means the earth is getting hotter. And natural disasters like typhoons, hurricanes, right? This kind of thing. And natural disasters are obviously correlated. Obviously means easy to see. Clear. Clearly. Easy to see. Easy to see that. Obviously correlated. Okay? We've used it in another form, but it also makes sense here, right? Because we know that correlated is having a connection between. Here's one thing, natural disasters. Here's two, global warming. These things are related. These things have a connection. So why not use the word correlated? Sure, we can. Now, one thing you can do to check this is ask someone who knows if it's right or wrong, your teacher, right? Or maybe a forum online that you could use, for example, on cloudenglish.net, which is a website. You can go to one of the pages and ask a question. Is this right? Is this meaning right? And get an answer. It's another way you could do it. So, yes, correlated works in this one as well. Now we're beginning to build the tree a little bit more, right? The deep understanding of the language. Not only do we know what this word means in our language, no, we understand it in English. We've thought about it in English. We've learned it in English. We understand the situation it was used in English. Now we understand, basically, how to use it in English by thinking. So, this is how to learn words. This is the process for learning a new word. Do this every time you come across a new word. It's a struggle. It's harder, but the struggle, the difficulty is what makes it stick in your mind. Okay? So always go into struggle. Don't run away from struggle. Struggle is good. Struggle can help you really, really learn something deeply. Okay? This is how to learn words. All right. In the next lesson, we're going to be talking about idioms. Okay, we're going to be talking about expressions, idioms, how to use them, when to use them. We're not going to be learning many, but we're going to be talking about this and how this relates to building the English brain. So I will see you in the next lesson.